We are now live on YouTube. So welcome everyone to Becci Leamington Spa Volume 10. It's great to have you all here. And welcome to Leamington Spa if you've not been to Leamington Spa before. You're in leafy Warwickshire and I have not muted YouTube, which is really unprofessional. I have got rid of that. Apologies. Start with a tech poll. So I'm Sarah Lowry. I am your host for this evening, along with Jamie Chalmers, my co-host.
Hello.
There is nothing that Jamie doesn't know about embroidery.
Oh, thanks.
It'd be great for you just to say a few things about who you are, if you wouldn't mind.
I'll go on then. Thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, my name's Jamie Chalmers. I'm known as Mr. X-Stitch, or the kingpin of contemporary embroidery, and I'm on a mission to change the way the world thinks about needlecraft, really. So I'm the founder of arguably, and I'm arguing because I'm talking now, the world's coolest cross-stitch magazine, which is called X-Stitch. And the Mr. X-Stitch blog that I run has been going for over 12 years, just promoting exciting embroidery, needlecraft, beadwork, lace, millinery, 3D textiles, all of that sort of stuff. I do talks, I do workshops, and then somehow I co-host Becci with someone who definitely is much better at it than I, Sarah.
Thank you, Jamie. So I've been running Becci Leamington Spa for a year and a half now, since November 18. I guess it's nearly 2 years actually. We've got 11 speakers for you tonight, presenting 10 talks. And they're joining us from the Leamington area, from London, from Bristol, Lincolnshire, Buckinghamshire, and also Italy, just near Bologna. So these guys have travelled for you, and I know you guys have travelled for us too. So it'd be great to hear where you're watching us from on the YouTube chat. So do comment. I know that in the last event, a lot of people made us jealous. They told us, you told us what you were drinking, what you were eating. By all means do. And it's just really, really good to have you here. What I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about PK, what it means to those of you who are new and haven't joined the event before. And then I'm going to show you a video that myself and Sri made, who set up the ecotherapy group that we're supporting, just to tell you very briefly what it is and how it works. And then we'll have your 10 amazing presenters. So I know a lot of you know what PK is, but just for the newbies, it's really nice to explain that it was set up in 2003 by Klein Dytham Architects in Japan. So this is why it has a name that is unpronounceable to me. I actually run an event where I cannot say the name of it. Thank you, Jamie. Cha-ka-cha. It's a Japanese word and it means something like chit chat, and it's a format for talks. So I'm going to carry on calling it PK tonight, just because it's easier. In England, we say it wrong. We say Becci, and it's sadly not how you're meant to say it. Anyway, so what it means is that for each speaker, they can only show 20 slides, and they change every 20 seconds out of their control. So they only have 400 seconds to talk to you about whatever they are passionate about, or it's 6 minutes and 40 seconds if you want to look at it that way. So it's short, it's sharp, it's concise, and it's really engaging. And that's why we've continued to do these events. This is the second one online. Obviously, COVID, it stopped us in our tracks. And so we've gone online for the second time tonight. And it went really well last time. So we wanted to repeat it. Now there are PK events all over the world since 2003. There's something like 1,200 events in towns and cities. So it's a really successful format to use. So you'll be aware that we're supporting the Leamington group Ecotherapy. It's a group that is based in Foundry Wood in Leamington. And I actually volunteer for the group. I have done for the last nearly 2 years. And we just wanted to tell you a bit more about it so you understand some of what we're doing and where the money's going. So I met up with Tree Johnston in her backyard just yesterday, and we filmed this. So I'm going to show you the video. So this is the first of the screen sharing you will see. So hopefully it's going to get better as the night goes on. my Czech will improve. It always makes me slightly nervous. So here we go. I am going to stop that. I've realised I need to give you some sound. It would be great if you can hear the video as well as see it. Here we go. Right, try again.
It'd be great for the PK audience to hear a little bit about how and why you set up ecotherapy.
I've just moved to the area and I was looking for things to help me with my mental health problems, and I'd used nature before and it just seemed a perfect place, Foundry Wood. So I'd done the volunteer days, and after doing it I realised I really wanted to bring this to more people, with people who'd got mental health problems.
And so I suppose that's when you would have got in touch with ARC.
Yeah, they were great. I did already know of ARC because I was opening and closing the wood.
Yeah.
But so I'd met them, and that's when I could propose the idea of doing an ecotherapy at Foundry Wood Group.
Who is ecotherapy for?
Actually, it's for anybody who's feeling lonely.
Okay.
So that could be, there could be other issues around like that. Mental health issues could have prevented people seeing each other. It could be addiction, recovery that they're in, because you're in a new country and you don't know anybody. It could be a variety of reasons that make you feel lonely and not connected. So that's at the heart of it, who it's aimed at, because the research shows loneliness is a killer, and it's as comparable to smoking 20 cigarettes a day. So that's where it all comes from, a feeling to be connected with each other and nature.
So what's a typical day at ecotherapy like?
So it would be a case of getting together at some point beforehand or on the day, and we talk about what activities the participants, the volunteers and Kath and myself would like to do and how we can make that come about. So within that, so it might be somebody, a volunteer or a participant, that delivers an activity. There might be another small group that's going off and clearing paths and clearing brambles or identifying plants as well. And then there'd probably be another group that's preparing food and getting the fire ready. So it's very much about getting back to basics and working with nature and stripping everything back. But I think the important thing to say, as you know, Sarah, is that everybody's equal in that group. We all have a say in how it runs. Everybody's got, you know, a vested interest in the group.
Absolutely.
And so it's really important that, you know, everybody feels that.
Definitely. And I think it's also worth pointing out that it's free. There's a motorbike just going past. It's free for anyone to attend.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's also good to say that you can come along for half an hour. You don't have to come for the whole 5 hours.
Yeah.
And, you know, for some people, even just leaving their house and coming for a few minutes to come and say hello, have a cup of tea and then leave, that's huge.
Yeah.
So what's the funding for? How do you use it?
Okay, so it's used for, some of it's used for outreach, which is basically making contact with other services that provide mental health service or addiction service for other people. So we'd go and meet with them, tell them about our group, give them some leaflets, get them links to the group. So that's one of the things. They've even gone leafleting. It pays for people to facilitate it.
Just 2 members of staff?
2 members of staff, and then also the food, the equipment, craft activities, the resources we need for those, food. So it's for the whole thing, basically.
Sure. Why does ecotherapy need funding?
Well, because we've got funding till the end of September,
Yeah.
but because of the COVID-19 outbreak, any pots of funding are obviously going towards emergency response to COVID organisations.
Sure.
So that puts us back in line with everybody else. So that's why we need funding.
Okay, so I think it's also worth mentioning maybe now is that at the moment ecotherapy is online, we're meeting in Zoom and on Facebook Live doing different tutorials. So hopefully we'll be back in the wood as soon as we can, and we'll see when that is. And I'm just delighted that PK can support you guys, and thank you for meeting with me today.
And thank you, honestly, from everybody at Ecotherapy, we're absolutely delighted that you've chosen us, so thank you.
Okay, so there you have our little intro to ecotherapy. So we will now start with our speakers. Our first speaker is Lee Simmons. So I'm just going to get that together. I'm just switching screens around. I'm sorry that it paused there slightly.
If everybody in the comments on YouTube, if they're watching, if they'd care to share perhaps their choice of beverage or snack this evening. I know you mentioned it before, but there's nothing better to get a potential ka-cha person a bit angsty than realizing they're being outclassed on the savory snack choice or something like that. And I hope everybody's suitably ventilated and hydrated. It's going to be a hot one.
It certainly is. I've had to close my windows so you can't hear the street outside.
I'm going to be sweating buckets in about 20 minutes, if I'm honest.
So our first speaker is Lee Simmons. Lee is an artist in London whose practice is based in painting, moving to and from that traditional format as if the canvas is a trampoline. Her paintings have incorporated sheep, goats, firemen, a choir, a band, the ocean. They're often temporary and social, resulting in photographic evidence. So Lee, I'm going to share my screen now, and then I will mute myself. You will see yourself come up very shortly. So I will now mute myself, and if you can say a few words, and then I will go when you tell me that you're ready.
Ready? Is that loud enough? Oh, okay. I think I'm on. So, hello. I'm trying to share about 10 years worth of projects in about 400 seconds. So let's see how this goes. Generally, the works are recorded just with one photograph, and they're quite involved, so this format does suit it. They're projects I make on my birthday. This is the first one. It's Marble Arch, and in the middle of the night, I carpeted the foot tunnel with 3 other artists and a dog, and the paint made its way to Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park. And this was linked to work with quarries, exploring movement of stone to the city. And it was on MySpace, so it was a while ago, made by a little comic character, so I could put out warnings, etc., let people know what it was without it coming directly back to me. And the spiders got involved as well. Yeah, it sort of traces moved around. This was the next one, which was in the Middle East, going across borders. I printed out sheets with the colour E90293, which was a very bright fuchsia pink, but different from every printer, and then talked to people and wrote their comments on these sheets. And that's the whole sheet. Normally it would be cut into the 9 pieces with little comments on each. That's the division wall between Israel and Palestine at Bethlehem. Banksy was there that year as well, and I made some installations in Palestine, and the final one was in Jordan, in Petra. These are some people's comments from different places pinned up on a board, and the fire is my first big climb, which was very spontaneous with a Bedouin and a German traveller. And yeah, we climbed in Little Petra, which is sort of a bit off the map. Yeah, it was an interesting birthday. So this is Coldblow Lane in London, very near where Millwall football ground is, and the site of some of the first football riot the term football hooligan was coined. Cars would come through this tunnel, lit the glitter up that I put on the floor with a few friends, and crush the flowers. And here is the foot tunnel in Greenwich. So at the foot of the River Thames, I walked 33 balloons from New Cross to Greenwich via Deptford with 2 friends. And this is where Greenwich Mean Time is set, so the time that all the world zones sort of hinge on. Another couple of years pass, and I'm painting and devising a large red line in my studio in Bermondsey. Had a birthday party this time, leading up to the event that was actually on my birthday. So the party was in Bermondsey, London, and the red line was in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. After the party, we continued to dance through the night. Where I lived around the corner, one of my housemates made this lovely illustration. The table was quite cool. That was built between the housemates too, in a cooperative in New Cross. So yeah, from there over to Brazil. I had been crumbling dried rose petals and sort of used other materials to make a really big line. And then there were postcards that followed up from that, which I put a haiku on and some more information because it's protest art, really. Dusty red line is blowing on the breeze, tears stain red on faces with lives stolen. Red dust makes it hard to breathe. So there was a lot of talk of red lines at the time, issues in Syria, Obama, saying there's a red line if chemical weapons are used. They would go in, but chemical weapons were used, and they really supported a lot of the communities. So these are the resulting postcards. There was a longer text that got sent with them, as well as the poem, the haiku, and that was sent quite far and wide. So from Redline and a series of paintings, sort of moved on and did an exhibition with some Syrian artist friends, and also one of the artists from the first Pink Tunnel project. And at the end of that, I sort of hopped in and made a video of me singing a song that linked the paintings. That was then projected back onto the paintings and performed in Peckham Place. There was a sort of video screening, and then halfway through my screening, I jumped in and played the song live, which was a bit of a surprise for people, and shared it online. And that's the first time that I've really shared one of my songs as an adult. This is a book of postcards. So that's now 4 years ago. One image for each project and a little bit of information on the back bound together into a book form. And then you've also got the postcards on the right, which are just bound with a belt. So the first launch was in Westminster Reference Library with a birthday party, but then it went to Wales. This is with one of my best friends and her kids using a human catapult to launch the book off her nearby mountain. That was actually launch number 4, I think. Also did one in Iceland, and this is in Spain. The launches were made with friends and with passers-by. I just met these two on the week that I was there. We were launching it into a lake. It's all eco materials, it's like natural food dyes, recycled paper. So also in Spain, we launched it from the top of it's a multi-pitch. So by now, 10 years later from the first Jordan project, I've actually learned a little bit about climbing, so I could put clips in and go a lot higher and climb more safely on planned routes. So the book was launched off the top of that blue line. And this is my last piece, which is it's sort of poem that came from a song. And I then made it as a screen print, made 40 prints and sold them for £40 and really enjoyed delivering them to friends and posting them to friends. And the song was actually made up on one of the last climbs that I did in Spain. And I guess I am now complete. Neat.
That was very good work there. Do you know what? I thought, just when you think you know what she's going to do next, you don't know what she's going to do next. That was extremely diverse. And also I think those might be the best book launches I've ever seen. I can think of several books I've read that I wish had been launched similarly, possibly into very deep gullies, but I digress. Sarah, over to you.
Thanks, Jamie, and thank you, Lee. So speaker number 2 is Becci Heath. Becci is a colour and material designer by day and has gained an interest in gardening over just the last few years. Becci actually knows very little about horticulture, but is learning huge amounts thanks to the great members in her Facebook group, the Kenilworth and Warwickshire Plant Swap. So Becci, welcome. I shall now share the screen.
Thank you.
Okay.
So yes, thank you to Becci for having me today. And yeah, it's really exciting to be here. And I wouldn't be here actually if it wasn't for some thanks I owe to my friends Lee and Juliana, who plied me with some rather strong cosmopolitan cocktails one evening, which gave me the Dutch courage to actually commit to doing a Becci talk. So yeah, the relationship between the Kenilworth Plant Swap and cosmopolitan cocktails. So yes, thank you to Lee and Juliana for those. And as Sarah said, yeah, I really don't know very much about gardening. So I've got a caveat here, which is I cannot be held personally responsible for the incorrect naming of any species or the misinterpretation of a plant versus a weed. And no plants were harmed in the making of this presentation. Yeah, people think I know things, but I sadly don't. So where did the idea come from? I had a garden design which was unaffordable actually when I started adding up the price of plants alone. So my parents were super generous in donating to me plants that they perhaps weren't using in their garden, or splitting old plants that needed to be separated. So I acquired a lot, and this was like a revolution for me. So I could create like a really beautiful space with some greater meaning from plants that I'd acquired from my parents. And I felt then it was a waste to put unwanted plants in the bin, and somebody else likewise could enjoy the plants that I was getting rid of. So in terms of the group, I founded it, I think it was in 2017. There's a couple of spin-off groups now, the Southam and Stratford-upon-Avon plant swap groups, and I think we're around 915 members currently. It's not a selling group, it's for giving, yeah, it's generosity and kindness, and that's what we work on. Here's, I didn't populate these graphs. Facebook is great at doing some analytics. So this just shows we're predominantly female and mostly 35 to 44-year-olds, but you can see that there's quite a cross section from sort of 25 and sort of the 65 category. T's and C's. So yeah, absolutely no selling except or advertising a business except for charities. Be mindful of others before taking lots. Things like no queue jumping by sending a private message, and no onward selling. We have to have these just to keep the status quo of the group keep the status quo moving. FAQs. So can we use this forum to ask for share advice? Is it possible to list gardening equipment? Can we show our gardening projects? There's more on here. The answer to all of those is absolutely. It's not just about swapping plants. It's about helping each other and giving some people the opportunity to acquire something they may have not been able to. Variation is really important. So we have lots of different posts on here from someone wanting some ideas about a new garden design, or we've got lots of posts at the moment by people sharing photos of their green spaces or some plants, which is really positive. Most popular giveaway, plastic plant pots. But the good thing about this, it enables the plastics to be reused rather than going into landfill. But maybe it makes me think that we could switch to perhaps some biodegradable pots rather than plastic. Aloe vera babies is another really popular giveaway on here. Common advice, plant identification. So there are apps with better or worse capability, but we've got some fantastic experts in the group. So that's what people are there for and like to help. And then there's a question, is this a weed, which comes up a lot, and the answer is a weed is a plant that's in the wrong place. Most unusual post, thank you Jeff Sivier, is his barbecue creation. So yeah, recycled, upcycled an old barbecue into a planter. So I love seeing things like this, people's unique ideas, yeah, coming through. Most popular post recently, this is in the last 60 days, was about her abundant cucumber plants. So she had over 60 comments, people offering to share chilies, leeks, tomatoes, so many other vegetables to share. And that's really beautiful to see. A fantastic one recently in terms of some history. So Hayley asked for help with a rose identification. It belonged to her husband's nan, and actually what we think has been identified is a species which is dated back, or stemmed back, excuse the pun, to the 1500s. So incredible to think that this rose is continuing to live from that period of time. So one positive element of the COVID-19 is the boom in horticulture. So the weather we've had has been fantastic. Lots of people are spending more time now in their gardens, and it was a bit of a shaky start at the beginning, but garden centres have really bloomed and become really busy. Beauty and nature. So yeah, this is a thank you actually to some of our amazing contributors for sharing some beautiful imagery, photographs from their green spaces. And I love seeing these because it makes you feel so positive. It's, yeah, wonderful. Community supporting communities. So yes, I'm very welcome to sharing charities and community groups. So we've got Spencer's Retreat, Kings Hill Nurseries, Incredible Edibles, and Friends of Kenilworth Station are some of the groups which have shared and asked for donations in the past. Really, this is a team of experts, so we've got so many amazing, incredible members with impressive knowledge that they're willing to share. Everyone's keen to help each other, and my knowledge as well has grown exponentially thanks to the group contributors. A growing future. So yeah, hopefully soon we'll get to 1,000 members, which I'm really proud of. I'm hoping that we might be able to organise and reinvigorate the idea of some plant swap evenings and talks, and also increase the plant swap charitable support through recognition of some of our local charities and groups. Finally, thank you to all of the members of the Kenilworth and Warwickshire Plant Swap group for just being a great support network for each other, helping everybody so much. And for those who've allowed me to share their photos within this presentation and their posts, and also to everybody watching today and supporting the Foundry Woods Ecotherapy group. Thank you.
That's mega. I'm never going to a garden centre again after that. I realised before that I've been quite slapdash in as much as I was supposed to mention at the end of the last presentation. I was supposed to mention that you can find Lee on various social medias, including, for instance, facebook.com/Lee Simmons Artist. And while I'm there, Becci's Plant Swap group can be found at, bear with me, get a pen ready, facebook.com/groups/178001854202978. So easy to, or just look up Kenilworth and Warwickshire Plant Swap. That ought to do the job nicely. And shout out to Helen in the YouTube comments, who might have fallen off her chair at the prospect of there being a group in Southam. I hope she's okay. Sarah.
Hello, thank you. That was brilliant, Becci. So I'm just lining up our next presentation. Bear with me. I'm trying to do two things at once, and sometimes I'm not so good at it.
I'll carry on talking.
Yes, please.
I've got a useful app on my phone for plant identification. It's called My Mother-in-Law, and anytime we see a plant we don't know, we just like send a picture to her. She's very patient. Particularly when it's like random wildlife flower by the edge of a canal or something like that. I think, to be honest, sometimes she makes them up. I swear once she said one was a variegated chlamydia, and I think she might have just been trying to throw us off the scent there.
Brilliant. Wow. So I am ready for our next speaker. Thank you.
I'm not sure.
So Our next speaker would have been exhibiting his woodwork in Warwickshire Open Studios. This is an event across the county in Warwickshire where artists open up their studios and their homes to the public. I also would have been in it myself as well. Obviously, this can't take place this year. So they're currently bringing artists' work directly to your home via the virtual world, basically on the internet through the hashtag Art Weeks from Home. And that's happening now until the 5th of July. So it's just a little plug that you can go to Warwickshire Open Studios website and you can see images of members' work. There'll be behind the scenes videos and there'll also be demos and tutorials. And we'll put the links in the YouTube chat. But so let's focus on Tom Ingall. He lives on an organic farm, and that's where him and his family farm hazelnuts, grow trees, grass, and manage the land for wildlife benefits. He has always grown and made his own of as much as is possible in life. As well as the farm, he makes and builds with wood, from reciprocal roofed roundhouses to metamorphic chairs. Thank you for that sentence. It's really hard to say. But they do change. I've seen those chairs. They do change. Anyway, along with his wife, Kaz Ingall, Tom has set up Canalside Community Farm, which Ali will actually be talking about later. Tom's passion for green woodwork has flourished in recent times, and he's now wrestling an obsession with carving spoons. So I will now share my screen.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay. And then just let me know when you are ready.
Yeah, ready when you are. So I'm a big fan of wood in all its forms, and that includes standing underneath a tree or walking in the woods, through to all things that wood can be made into. As you can see here, the joy on my face of proudly presenting you with some of the simple edge tools that I use for green wood spoon carving. By green, I don't mean literally green, I mean simply unseasoned wood, still with the moisture, great for burning or firewood, but fabulous for carving by hand. And cracking open a log, as I'm doing here, to discover what's inside is an exciting moment for me. I hoard spoonwood. I'll eagerly eye up any freshly felled timber wherever I am, imagining the spoons that might be hidden within it. Carving spoons is an adventure into an incredible natural material called wood. It's a journey on which I never quite know what I'm going to find, which is, yeah, it's exciting. Now, there are many different ways to carve spoons, and tonight I'm going to show you where I'm at with carving spoons at the moment. I'm on a journey learning it. I'm right here, I'm carving stock cuts into a piece of cherry. I'll be carving birch in some of these short films tonight as well, which is also great for carving spoons. And you can see some straight lines running through the spoon here. That's great for spoon carving. It's not always a given. I don't know if you're actually able to see what I'm seeing. It's a little bit staccato. The stock cuts that I put in prevent the split going down through the bowl. These are simple tools. They do need to be kept extremely sharp. Ironically, that keeps them much safer. It allows me to slow down and be more measured while I'm carving, rather than just hacking away and hurting myself. The axe is a beast of a tool. It helps me quickly remove large amounts of wood from the spoon with ease, without hopefully removing my fingers, which is always a bonus. I can kind of slice around the outside of the bowl here, which it's just a lot easier to do. Now, here I'm using a draw knife. I need both my hands on the tool to do this. I'm sitting on a spoon mule. I'm operating that with my legs, clamping the spoon firmly in the spoon mule jaws. It's a quick release system. It means that, like with the axe, I can rapidly remove quite a lot of the wood. This might look like it's speeded up, but actually this is just the speed that I can carve out when I'm in the groove. I'm defining the outline of each spoon here, around the bowl, down the sides, and I'm in my happy place. Here I'm, running a super sharp draw knife over the spoon, and these creating beautiful, exquisite curls that often feel better than the finished spoon itself. Okay, so let's take a breath and look at where the spoon's at now that I've used the axe and the draw knife. It's fairly rough, it's defined. I mean, controversially, it doesn't have a bowl yet, and I am carving an eating spoon here, which some folk shockingly balk at the idea of eating with wood. I mean, people are familiar with a ladle and a cooking spoon and a coffee scoop and a spatula. These are well accepted in the kitchen, but eating with wood is a bit outside the mainstream. So this stage of the carving process is essential. It's really significant to get the bowl beautifully shaped, glassy smooth. It makes all the difference when I'm putting the spoon in my mouth, and I want to convince some of you guys to try this as well. The hook knife, which I'm using at the moment, and the Floyd knife, straight knife, which I'm going to use to finish the spoon from here on in, needs to be kept surgically sharp as well. Although the wood is still fairly green, it's the tool's sharpness that allows me to, you know, really cut as I am here. And that means that I'm going for a really thin rim and a thin bowl so that I can create the thickness that I want when I'm eating. And there's a confluence between the functionality of the spoon and the beauty of it. It's got to have both for me. This is another element of the addiction, really, where I want the convergence of those two elements to come together. And it's a good example here of where I'm carving, where the bowl meets the handle. There's a lot of wood, relatively speaking, that isn't a spoon here. And this is where small changes in the design can be brought in to finesse the final shape. I'm not having to fight the knife through the wood. I'm using grips that employ both my hands. I'm sometimes bracing the spoon against my body. I can be really, really delicate and accurate at the same time, just removing small amounts of wood, running around the back of the bowl and creating that transition and that shape that I want. So here we are with a pile of wood chips on the grass that you can't see, and a spoon that in next to no time is nearly ready to fledge. There's still loads of the best carving fun to be had. After all, it's got to look great on the kitchen table day after day. And that means chamfers and micro chamfers, both which sound quite technical, but it's basically taking away those exquisite spiraling curls that you see here. It's kind of deep breath and steady hand time, making these finishing cuts so the spoon is smooth, and it's smooth to look at and it's smooth to feel. The final thing I do is burnish, which is where the real skill comes in. It's about rubbing a smooth, round, hard pebble all over the spoon, crushing the wood fibers, leaving a glossy surface ready for oiling. And now it's kind of finally at the stage where I wanted to get it to. This is where there's enough depth of wood in the neck to give it plenty of strength, while still being delicate and light at the same time. Now, we're soon going to see the cherry spoon that I started at the beginning with, throwing those stop cuts into. It's now been oiled with a mixture of beeswax and linseed oil, and it's just as I want it. I'm delighted with it. Okay, I hope you would be as well. So thanks for indulging this rapid deep dive into my obsession with spoon carving. Maybe I'll have inspired you to try it one day, or at the very least, I hope you'd consider giving a wooden eating spoon a go in the future. Lastly, this is the journey the birch spoon takes, and right at the end after burnishing, I like to turn the oven on 200 degrees C and pop it in the oven for about half an hour. Thank you very much.
There, I tell you, I don't know if it's the combination of heat of an evening and wine, but I don't think it is. That is deeply soothing, deeply soothing. I'm very relaxed right now. I'm also contractually obliged not to make jokes about logs, wood or spooning. And I've decided that every month I want to try and use the phrase, that's a lot of wood that isn't a spoon, in just everyday parlance, because I think that's exactly a powerful phrase.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was trying to drive home. I'm glad you got that, Jamie.
That's amazing, man. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. That was brilliant. So speakers number 4 are Marcus Willcocks and Rosanna Vitiello. So we have 2 speakers today for one presentation. They're both practicing designers and urban researchers. They have a shared interest in the meaning, connection and action in our public spaces. Marcus is a research fellow at Central St Martin's Socially Responsive Design Innovation Unit in London, and he's also a senior urban designer with Sustrans in Bristol. Rosanna is a research associate in the same department at St Martin's, and she is co-founder of the creative agency, The Place Bureau. They work at super local levels in cities worldwide to help explore and support our changing relationships with places. So Marcus has come today to Leamington Spa from Bristol, and Rosanna joins us from London. Welcome to you both. I'll now share the screen and let you take the stage. When you're ready, tell me, and I will move on to the next slide.
Thanks, Sarah. Maybe just to flag up before we get going in earnest that Rosanna and I are going to swap halfway through. We're not going to swap every other slide, so don't panic, but we'll swap halfway through and we probably won't introduce each other. So
right, my voice won't have dropped.
Don't be shocked. Rosanna's voice won't have dropped.
Right. All right, I think we're ready. Let's go. Okay, so come with us. By the power of lockdown, we're going to take you on a walk. And the moment we step out of the door and onto the street or onto a path, we're embraced by places. And so from here, our relationship with them starts to build. So as we continue our stroll, what signs or signals do you pick up about the street you're on? What prompts stop you and get you to look again? How might other people's responses change that too? So what we're going to explore today is how places speak to us. And throughout time, we've had an innate understanding, an innate connection of land and environment around us. It's a universal trait. We see it around the world, from Aboriginal songlines onwards. And as we move to city living, this sort of skill of reading our landscape remained latent. So what does that mean? Well, in an instant, when you're on a street in a city, you decide whether you fall head over heels for a place or whether you're repelled, whether you hate it. And in the coming minutes, we urge everyone to think about how you hear from places, how you decide whether you like places, and how they speak back to you. As we change the way now, just after COVID, that our streets and neighbourhoods and cities speak to us. So more than ever, perhaps now, the places where we live and our relationships with them are changing fast. So we'll come back to this question at the end, but in the meantime, do message us on the chat function. If you could change one thing about your neighbourhood or the character of your street, as we've seen many people do during lockdown, what would it be? So what we're talking about today builds on a chapter that we've just written for a handbook on placemaking, but that's really born out of workshops we've been running over the last decade all over the world, where we started asking questions about what places, how places make us feel, and what we do about that. So we found that it's deeply affected by the sort of vocabulary of signs and symbols, and we call that an urban lexicon. So here we are, boom, in Times Square in New York. As we meet this new place, we take in the cues and the clues that help us build our impression. So does this place feel relaxed because there's a security guard there, or because the guy is eating a slice of pizza, or because there's empty chairs and tables for us, or is it too intense? And if so, why? So as you get to know a place, you change what you hear and the ways we speak back to it, and that our behaviour also in the street. And we make these split-second assumptions about places. And we must like Times Square, because on my slide, we're stuck there. Yeah, let's just stay in Times Square, fine. We were going to go for a walk and keep going, but let's see what happens. We'll keep going. Anyway, I'll keep talking to you. So if we were to walk on through here, I think we'd find is that walking is a great way to understand how a town or a city, starts to build a conversation with a street. And the slow pace and the closeness of it helps you read the details, but for every reader, different details jump out. So in this instance, if you're a thief, think about that security guard, you might think about how, you might look for an easy way to dissipate it. If you're a kid, you're thinking about, well, how can I find a spot to play? If you're a tourist, it's like, what am I going to photograph? So anyone involved in making places needs to think about these different meanings to come forward to different people. Yeah, I think if we had enough of Times Square now, do we want to keep moving on? Does anyone know the slide stuck? And if not, we can keep talking, but oh, we're working on it. Okay, well, as we keep talking through this and then we can flip through the rest. I think we'll be going for a run instead of a walk. But look, right, through lockdown, there's been a shift in whose voices are heard. Interestingly, think about it, we've also got a statue there, and then the way that public spaces sort of represent us and what we care about in a place. Times Square is a great example. This used to be full of cars, and actually now we sort of see that it's not just for cars, but it's for people. That's happening in cities all around the world, from New York to Milan to Leamington Spa and beyond. We're spending much more time in our neighbourhoods and evolving our kind of bonds with them. So public spaces and parks have become a kind of lifeline for cities and residents. Now, that art of discovering, if you think about it, can start close to home. It can start literally on your street corner, because that's basically all we've been able to go see for the last probably couple of months. There's a charity in the UK called Common Ground, and they say that the distinction of a place lies in the detail. They say that the little things, those details, are clues to previous lives and landscapes, and they might be the very thing that breathes significance into streets. So we urge you to go out and look for the details in the places and streets around you and see what they tell you about the people who might live there, whether or not they in fact appear. Now, I'm going to hand over to Marcus, but Marcus, you might want to take people to a different spot.
We can hang in on our walk. We can hang in Times Square. It's no problem.
We must really like it. Let's be here. Let's just stay there.
There's so much to look at.
I know.
Let's just hang it there.
Let's just do that. That's fine.
As Rosanna was talking about, in each place we respond to the details, and those are the things that help us understand how to hear from streets, and how to kind of get to know their characteristics and work out what we love and what we don't and what we feel awkward about. But what are the ways that we can speak back? So I was going to try and walk through some examples in the next few minutes to try and look at how our relationship might be, how we can balance our relationship. I don't know if we're even in the call, so I'm gonna hang fire for a minute.
I think it's all good. I think you might just have to describe the spaces and places. We'll close our eyes. Everybody who's watching, just close your eyes for a minute.
We'll take you somewhere.
Good. Honestly, do it.
So all of you, I'm sure, have seen some of the initiative that's been taken by so many people through the recent COVID pandemic. Things like chalk drawing on the street, things like putting up NHS signs in the window, things like finding new ways for kids to play in an outside environment, working out new ways to be around each other. There's so many changes that have happened in next to no time. And our connections with our neighbourhoods and the places that we thought we knew so well have been changing. Public spaces have become the new social spaces. And thankfully, I think, imagination's been allowed outside again. So that's a great thing amongst all the tragedy. People's actions have been speaking so loudly in shared spaces lately. It's amazing. We've been seeing in recent months that people have been adding and enriching things, enriching bits of their respective neighbourhoods. They've been adding, so going back to these lexicons, urban lexicons that Rosanna was talking about, people have been adding signs of love and companionship, like NHS signs, or rainbows. They've been adding signs of expression, like artistic actions and interventions in street environments. They've been adding signs of confidence and involvement and just putting their foot out and getting to know a neighbour different who they might not have known before, or signs of welcome in a place. In parallel, in recent weeks and months, people have been editing and taking away from their environments. We just looked at the statue that's in Times Square in New York, but if we think, or locally to me at least, in Bristol, the Colston statue recently came down to great spectacle in the media and so on, but actually through that came signs of empowerment, signs of debate, signs of equity, which quickly gave way to other actions and brought chances for people to speak because they'd seen one thing change in their street environment. It gave them a chance to speak and question what else is appropriate or not appropriate in their shared and street environments. People have been finding platforms for performance and expression, sharing their skills and voices and appreciation, whether that's clapping, whether it's a group, a local DJ who lives behind me called DJ Lord Dubs has been playing DJ sets every Saturday for 12 weeks, which has been amazing, just as a kind of gift to his neighbours because he couldn't do it in the club that he normally works in. There's been bands, there've been performers making amazing works and creations from their doorsteps. So what have we learned? Well, we've asked people through online media and people we've been in touch with and people we've been working with what their thoughts are on hearing the city and how they can speak back to the city. We've heard some important themes. These are reciprocity, if I can say it right, agency, trust, these are the first ones. As with any good relationship, our connections with places must work both ways round. We need trust. We need to trust the place, and the place needs to trust us. We need to both play our part. Secondly, there are themes like soul and confidence and love, or a bit of magic. This is about a place having the confidence to be itself and to shine, warts and all, for a place to be cared for by the people who are there, and not a copy of qualities of some other place. This is what gives it its soul, its genuine character, and those are the things that we really come to love in the end. So where next? Well, there's basically an open road ahead of us. Things have changed so much so quickly in our neighbourhoods and in our cities over recent months that it's time for reinvention. People have started to come together, bring their own ideas and their own energy to the table. Let's find new platforms, new ways to keep the imagination flowing, and let actions happen through call and response. As we return home, I'll come back to the question that Rosanna was talking about. Imagine your street or your city for a moment, imagine that it's a stage where actors are walking on, where the scenery is shifting, where different acts are playing out. Maybe, is there one characteristic that you'd change that would help improve the performance or the experience for everyone? So what can you tell us? If your neighbourhood is a stage, what actions would you like to see, or what elements or details would you like to see done differently? If you haven't added anything to the YouTube messaging, or if it's frozen in line with the slides, I don't know, but please have a go. We'd love to hear from you, to know what things bother you, or what things you love, what things you'd like to see changed. Think about character, think about your relationship with the environments you know best. So let's continue this walk together. We're all placemakers in as far as Rosanna and I understand. Everyone, no place can be made until there are people there that bring their mark and their soul. The streets of tomorrow are going to be made and remade, we think, through ongoing call and response. Are you ready? Let's go. So yeah, we've got a handle that's at Urban Lexicons that I think would have shown on the slide, but we'd love to stay in touch and love to hear from you.
Applause. Well done. There might be an irony about you talking about the power of people and place in a lockdown situation, and then somehow the fate's not allowing you to show us pictures of people or places.
Digital got jealous.
I think so, but that was a great presentation nonetheless, and I'm sure there's a way somehow that we'll be able to get together like a little PDF of your slides or something, so that people can enjoy it at their leisure anyway. But
great.
Now, thank you for that. Now, I'm just standing in for Sarah because she's disappeared into the internet void for a minute. We're going to take a 10-minute break on the YouTube so that everybody can rehydrate, possibly slip in something a little bit more comfortable, restock those snacks and those sorts of things. The live stream's going to end so that you don't have like 10 minutes of empty people's rooms, as much fun as that would be. And then we'll be back in the room. So we will reconvene at 20 minutes past 20 hours, and we will see you then for the second half of the show. Thank you, everybody.
Good show.
Well done, guys. Keeping going there. That was incredible.
Nick is my computer